Have you ever wondered how a close friendship could cost you $50,000? Daniel wasn't careless. He worked hard in IT, lived a simple life, and saved every penny for over a decade. Then, with just one suggestion from his best friend from college, someone he trusted like family, his entire savings vanished in a matter of months. No contracts, no legal paperwork, just trust and a fall no one could catch. In this video, I'll show you 3 powerful lessons Daniel learned after paying the ultimate price for a single mistake. First, why even the closest friend can't replace a solid financial plan. Second, the subtle red flags of a dangerous investment you might miss when trust clouds your judgment. And finally, how Daniel recovered from the financial shock, not with anger, but with knowledge and quiet persistence. I spent weeks researching this story, checking timelines, verifying numbers, even diving into similar cases on Reddit and personal finance blogs, because I know this isn't just one man's story. This could easily be yours or mine. If you've ever hesitated before saying yes to a safe investment from someone close, watch this video to the end. It might just save what matters most before it's too late. Have you ever had a friend you'd trust so much you'd sign a blank check for them? Daniel did. And that chilly spring afternoon in Denver, Colorado, that's when everything started. After a long work week, Daniel was sipping craft beer at his favorite local bar. His best friend Leo, once his college roommate, walked in, beaming with excitement, eyes sparkling like he was about to share a life-changing secret. Leo had recently invested in a clean energy startup. He talked about once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, how spots were running out, and said, with just $50K, things could look completely different. Daniel chuckled, half joking, half curious. But when Leo spoke of getting rich together, something shifted. It brought back those old college dreams, nights spent sketching their future empires on pizza boxes. Leo had been there through Daniel's worst, when he lost his job, when he went through his divorce. How could he not trust him? A week later, no formal agreement, no legal documents, just an email confirmation, Daniel wired $50,000. It was everything he'd saved over 11 years. He didn't tell anyone, didn't ask an advisor, didn't do any legal checks. He just trusted. Then came the silence. 3 months passed, no updates, no real progress. Leo was busy running the operation, and Daniel, he stopped sleeping well. Every time he opened his banking app, anxiety punched him in the chest. One night, he called the hotline number Leo gave him. The answer? This number is no longer in service. Daniel drove through the quiet midnight streets, headlights cutting through the dark, his mind completely blank. A song played softly on the radio, but all he could hear was the crashing of truth. And in that moment, not when he lost the money, but when he lost the trust, Daniel realized something painful. No promise replaces a written contract, and no friendship is immune to financial risk. You might be thinking, that would never happen to me. But if you're kind, trusting, and have close friends, you might be closer to Daniel than you think. And that was only the beginning. Because what Daniel faced next wasn't just financial loss, it was the unraveling of everything he believed in. Up next, we enter the fallout, when friendships crack and false hopes collapse. One quiet weekend afternoon, as the sunlight softly spilled through the windows of a small coffee shop near downtown Houston, Daniel sat across from Leo, his college best friend. In front of them were 2 steaming lattes and an iPad open to a spreadsheet. Leo's eyes lit up with excitement as he spoke about a can't-miss opportunity. It sounded like gold had just been discovered in the desert. A biotech startup was about to enter its seed funding round. Triple returns in a year. Best of all, it was insider info, not yet public. Daniel started to ask questions, but Leo waved them off with a familiar grin. Just trust me. This one's real. It's a once-in-a-lifetime shot. Maybe we've all faced a moment like this, standing between logic and loyalty, between caution and connection. Daniel chose trust, and over the next few weeks, he sent $50,000, his savings from 6 years of frugal living, cutting back on meals, skipping small luxuries, and working weekends. At first, everything seemed fine. Leo sent updates via text. We're meeting an advisor from Stanford. Closed a soft agreement with a lab in Austin. Angel investors are interested. But Daniel began to notice something strange. No confirmation emails. No meeting notes. No official documents. Just words. Once Daniel asked Leo for the company registration number to verify. Leo laughed. Just filed it. Paperwork's on the way. Ha, don't worry. Daniel smiled back, but deep down, a faint alarm bell rang. He ignored it because it was his friend, because he didn't want Leo to feel embarrassed. And deep inside, he feared that doubt might crack a friendship they'd barely held onto over the years. The second time Leo missed a promised update due to another urgent thing, Daniel began to worry. That night, he stayed up rereading every message, every email, every so-called proof. And that's when it hit him. There was nothing concrete. Just hope, sweetened by the trust of a long-lost friendship. What's terrifying isn't that Daniel missed the red flags, it's that he saw them and chose to look away. Because of trust, because of hope, because of that stubborn belief that I can't be the one who gets played. And here lies the real lesson. Vagueness is never random. It's a signal. And every time you feel hesitant to ask more, to request clarity, to double check, that's when you're handing over your entire financial future with no guardrails in place. Next, I'll walk you through the moment everything shattered. When Daniel realized the biggest loss wasn't the money, it was the awareness he gave up just to protect a feeling. One ordinary Monday morning, Daniel opened his laptop, just like any other day, ready to check his emails before heading to work. The soft blue glow from the screen lit up his tired face after a restless night. He was waiting for an update from Leo, his close friend and unofficial investment partner, the person he had entrusted with his entire $50,000 life savings. And then the email came. Just a short subject line. We need to talk. No company logo, no professional formatting, no greeting, just a few cold, fragmented sentences. Project paused. Legal issues. Looking for a lawyer. Can't talk right now. Daniel read it again and again, his heart sinking into his stomach. In that moment, all the doubts he had brushed aside burst forth like a dam breaking. He tried calling. No answer. Texted. No reply. Emailed back. Nothing. Within less than 24 hours, Leo, the friend who used to message every day, call every week, and talk with excitement, had completely vanished. Phone number disconnected. Company website wiped clean. Social media accounts deleted. All that remained was a vague, emotionless email and silence. Daniel sat frozen in front of the screen, in a room so still he could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner. Questions flooded his mind. Where did I go wrong? Why didn't I double check? Why did I trust so easily? No one answered. No explanation came. Only that hollow feeling of betrayal, expanding like fog in his chest. There's something strange about financial loss. It doesn't strike like a knife. It bleeds slowly. You don't scream. You just sit there quietly, letting the pain eat away at pieces of hope. Daniel started blaming himself, not for losing money, but for not listening to his gut, for being too polite to ask one more question, for letting trust outrun truth. And here is where the real lesson starts to reveal itself. Losing money is sometimes less painful than losing clarity. A single email can wipe out every expectation if those expectations weren't built on something real. The truth is, no one invests on blind trust without eventually paying a price. And in the world of personal finance, that price is often heartbreakingly high. But Daniel's story doesn't end here. There's another chapter, one where he chooses to do things differently. But before we get there, let's pause for a moment to understand why financial downfalls like this can happen to anyone, even those who seem the most careful. In the first few weeks after losing the $50,000, Daniel was a shadow of himself. He avoided emails, couldn't bear to look at his bank account, and even simple conversations with his wife felt heavy. How do you even begin to explain that you've lost your entire savings just because of a friend's advice? Every morning, Daniel would sit by the window of their small Austin apartment, watching cars drift by under the pale June sun, his mind stuck in a loop. Where did I go wrong? He had always believed Leo was a smart guy, someone who'd made good money in crypto during the pandemic. They had shared everything: birthdays, holidays, late-night talks about dreams and regrets. So when Leo said, "This is the kind of opportunity that rewards risk," Daniel didn't hesitate. But trusting someone else with your future can blur what matters most. Finance is personal. No one will care more about your money than you do, not even your closest friend. One afternoon, trying to clear his head on a walk through the park, Daniel overheard a line from a podcast. No one cares about your money more than you. That sentence hit him like a wake-up call. He'd spent years letting others define what financial success should look like. A friend made a few grand on a risky trade. He felt behind. A coworker bought a new car. He felt the need to catch up. But he had never paused to ask himself, what do I really need? What kind of life do I want my money to support? So Daniel started small. Instead of scrolling social media to compare himself to others, he picked up a pen and wrote down what he wanted in the next 5 years. No more vague dreams of being rich or striking gold. Just clear, simple goals. Pay off credit card debt, build an emergency fund of 6 months' expenses, and start investing a small amount each month. Nothing flashy, but finally, they were his numbers, his reasons. As Daniel shifted from feeling lost to taking control, things began to change. He read books, listened to finance podcasts, and learned to ask better questions. Not what investment will make me rich fast, but what risk fits my life right now. And something unexpected happened. When he stopped chasing borrowed success, his own financial choices began to feel deeply meaningful. One evening, looking over his newly organized budget, Daniel smiled. No more chaos, no more sinking feeling, just a sense of calm. Because for the first time in a long while, he felt in control. And in that quiet moment, he realized something vital. Financial freedom doesn't begin with how much money you have. It begins with awareness, understanding that money isn't a crowd game. It's a deeply personal journey. And Daniel's journey, after that painful fall, was only just beginning. But before he could truly move forward, there was one more essential step. Learning to build a set of rules to make sure he'd never fall into the same trap again. Under the soft light of a late summer morning in Austin, Daniel was starting over from zero. But this time, everything was different. No more promises from friends, no more dreams of getting rich quick. Just a man, a notebook, and a quiet determination not to let one financial mistake define the rest of his life. That morning, he woke up earlier than usual. The kitchen still carried the faint scent of yesterday's coffee. The ticking of the clock echoed louder than ever. Daniel opened his laptop, not to check an investment account, but to begin learning everything from scratch. He started by watching beginner-level videos on personal finance, how to live on a $50 weekly budget, how to cut spending without losing joy. There was nothing flashy, just small, quiet steps. But the difference was this. Daniel wasn't searching for a miracle shortcut anymore. He wrote down what he learned, applied it step by step, and treated each task with the patience of someone rebuilding a garden after a storm. Every old debt he called and renegotiated, painstakingly. Some calls lasted over 40 minutes, just to lower the interest by a few percent. But Daniel knew it was those small percentages that once silently crushed him. He rebuilt his budget, not using someone else's template, but from the ground up. Daniel sat down with his wife and listed every expense. From the $6 breakfast at the local bakery to the utility bills, they created a money map, a financial picture they had never taken seriously before. Every weekend, they spent 30 minutes reviewing it. No blame, no pressure. Just one question. Did we spend this week in alignment with our values? One afternoon, while walking through the park, Daniel revisited a podcast he had once skipped. This time, the words landed deeper. Financial freedom doesn't come from making more. It comes from controlling what you already have. That was the first time he truly felt it. Financial crisis wasn't the end. It was a compass reset. A month later, they saved their first emergency fund, just $200, but it felt like a miracle. Daniel named the account Restart Fund and taped a note to the fridge. It's not this money that saved me. It's that I chose a new path. And maybe the most important thing Daniel learned wasn't how to earn back the money he lost. It was how to believe in himself again, to trust the small, consistent, right decisions. Because true recovery isn't just about the bank balance. It's about rising, slowly, steadily, without waiting for someone else to pull you up. From here, Daniel's journey enters a new chapter, where he doesn't just protect himself, but sets unbreakable principles so his finances will never fall apart again. One October evening, Daniel sat alone in his favorite coffee shop on 3rd Street, the same place he had first met Leo many years ago. The cappuccino in front of him had long gone cold, untouched. Outside, the autumn breeze carried the scent of dried leaves and cinnamon drifting in from the nearby bakery. The warm yellow glow of the lights softened his face. Not angry, just quiet. For the past few weeks, Daniel had been sorting through more than just his budget. He was also rebuilding his trust. One thing kept haunting him. Why did he trust Leo so much? Leo hadn't tricked him like some con artist. On the contrary, he was warm, confident, even generous, inviting Daniel out to dinner just to share a rare opportunity for close friends. At the time, nothing felt wrong. This was his friend, his college buddy, someone who once crashed on his couch during tough times, someone who had shared real, honest conversations. So how could he have doubted him? It wasn't until after everything collapsed that Daniel realized something important. There are boundaries in friendship that should never be blurred by money. When finances come between two people, everything becomes murky. Daniel used to believe that trust was enough, but in the world of personal finance, transparency and accountability are more essential than emotion. One afternoon, while reviewing his September expenses, Daniel drew a thick red line on his notebook and wrote, "Never invest just because of a relationship." He stared at that line for a long time. Not because he blamed Leo, but because he blamed himself. He hadn't drawn clear boundaries. He hadn't paused to ask, does this really align with my financial goals? When a friend recommends an investment opportunity, you're not speaking to a certified advisor. You're speaking to another person who might also be afraid, guessing, or swept up in a trend. And when both of you are unsure, closeness can't protect you from the fall. That was Daniel's greatest lesson. Friendships are precious, but money is personal. Just as you wouldn't share your bank password, you shouldn't let anyone else steer your financial direction simply because you've shared a few memories. Daniel didn't cut Leo out of his life, but he did learn to keep a healthy distance. They still talk, have lunch occasionally, but when Leo mentions a new project, Daniel simply smiles and says, "Good luck. I have a new rule now. Money is personal." In that way, he protected both his finances and their friendship. From that painful $50,000 fall, Daniel built a rule he'll never break again. And that rule opened up a new journey where he didn't just save his money, but reclaimed his self-respect. And up next, you'll see exactly how Daniel prepared himself to never fall into that same hole again. When Daniel looks back on the journey of losing $50,000 just because he trusted a friend, what hurts him most isn't the money. It's the feeling of losing himself. Not everyone has the courage to admit, "I was wrong." But from that moment, Daniel discovered something far more valuable than any investment: true financial maturity. He realized that financial freedom doesn't just come from how much money you have in your account. It comes from being able to make decisions independently, mindfully, and with full responsibility for your life. Like a forest that burns down only to regrow greener and stronger, Daniel began again. After the fall, he rebuilt himself step by step, learning to budget, creating an emergency fund, studying the financial market, and choosing long-term, low-risk investments. He no longer let emotions or guilt lead the way. And strangely, once he set clear boundaries, even his relationships started to feel healthier. If you're standing at the edge of a financial decision, whether it's an investment, taking on debt, or simply trusting someone's suggestion, remember Daniel's story. Sometimes, the most expensive lessons aren't meant to scare you. They're meant to wake you up. And if you've experienced loss or failure, know this: you are not alone. What matters is that you stand back up and start again, this time with greater awareness and strength in your heart. But all of today's lessons mean nothing if you don't know how to rebuild from zero. So how do you start again when you've been broke, burned, or lost faith in yourself? In the next video, I'll share the story of a woman who came back from bankruptcy, and in just 28 months, she paid off $113,000 in debt. If you're feeling overwhelmed by money, you won't want to miss that journey. I'll see you in the next video.